fasting,
Yes.
is there magic to this? Is it on, yeah? Oh.
Yes, on.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Alright, so Imam Ahmad Al-Hadi Sharif will speak under the topic ABC's Fiqh of Fasting, Part 1, and then Sheikh Salim will continue with Part 2, inshallah. Imam Ahmad.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Sallallahu وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Inshallah, this session will be about the rules and regulations on fasting, inshallah. It needs a lot of paying attention so that you could focus, inshallah ta'ala. And I will try to summarize and mention many points, and I will leave some points for Imam Salim. As-Sawm, the definition of fasting is al-imsak. Linguistically, Sawm is al-imsak, to abstain from anything is called Sawm. That's what Allah says in Surah Maryam. Mary said, "Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawma." I vowed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I will be fasting. She did not mean that she will not eat or drink. Rather, she meant that she will abstain from talking, from speaking. So anything that you abstain from linguistically, not definition, linguistically is Sawm. The definition of Sawm is at-ta'abbudu ila Allah, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bil-imsaki ala al-muftarat, abstaining from anything that nullifies your fasting, whether it's food or drink, or whether it's any other haram thing that we will mention inshallah. From tulu' al-fajr, starting from fajr time where the adhan is made until to the sunrise, okay, until the sunset. So this is called as-siyam, and this is the definition of Sawm. Fasting is one of the pillars of Islam. It's a mandatory upon every single Muslim who is capable to do fasting to fast. And anyone who denies the obligation of fasting, says that I don't have to fast, or fasting doesn't make sense, that person rejecting an ayah, rejecting the Quran. When Allah says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامِ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, is rejecting that ayah. To reject an ayah deliberately, and while you know this ayah is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without excuse, then that could take you outside of Islam. That could remove you from being a Muslim at all. The person who leaves fasting, the person who doesn't fast, he knows the obligation of fast just because of out of laziness. There's a lot of Muslims who don't fast, but they know fasting is part of Islam. But because due to laziness, due to other facts, they don't fast. Then are they Muslim or not? According to the most strongest opinion out there, they're Muslims by them testifying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, but they are committing a major sin, and they are called fusaq in Islam. They are disobedient servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if they do not repent from that, they may earn, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the boats, that they could earn the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His punishment. So we said that it's obligatory upon every single Muslim. Anyone who rejects the obligation of fasting is absolutely out of Islam. And anyone who acknowledges the obligation of fast, but out of laziness, out of weak of iman, then that person is still a Muslim, and he's a fasiq. The fadl of Sawm, the virtue of Sawm, this is what I was talking about yesterday and today. But one of the hadiths is that كُلُّ عَمْلِ ibn Adam lah. I will repeat that hadith. Every deed of the son of Adam, it belongs to him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الْحَسَنَةُ بِعَشْرِ أَمْثَالِهَا. Allah will reward every single hasana up to 10 times, except Sawm. Sometimes it may reach up to 700 times, except Sawm, except fasting. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الصَّوْمُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. Sawm belongs to me, I will reward him. That means Al-Kareem, the most generous. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you that I will reward you tremendously. I will take care of you. So the reward is beyond your imagination. That's why month of Ramadan, the month of fasting, is a great opportunity for those who appreciate. It's an opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to some people, and those people should take advantage of that. When it comes to fasting, now we're speaking about rules and regulations, inshallah. There are some things that would completely negate your fast, will invalidate your fast. And there are certain things that would decrease the reward of your fasting. Some was called mufsidat. They will invalidate completely. When we speak about the fiqh perspective, I will speak about, inshallah. I think maybe Imam Salim has that portion of it. But in general, some of the things that we do, like not praying while you're fasting, would completely invalidate your fast at all. That's why Prophet ﷺ, he said, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ حَظُّهُ الصَّوْمِ. There's a lot of people who are fasting, all what they get from their fast is being hungry. That Sawm is fasted, even though the scholars, they say, the obligation of that fast had already done. But he will not receive any reward of it. That means the person who doesn't doesn't pray while fasting, that person will not receive any reward, but he doesn't have to repeat that fast again if we say that person is a Muslim. So رُبَّ الصَّائِمٍ, that's a dalil for it. There are some things that will decrease the reward of the person who's fasting. Prophet ﷺ, he said, speaking about those, مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعَ قَوْلَ الزُّورِ, whoever doesn't leave or abandon saying evil things, which are namim, backbiting, snitching, making problems between the people, cursing, insulting somebody, lying, those are called qawl az-zur. Those will decrease, will not completely. You keep doing, you may reach zero. Sometimes you may go negative with your fasting. Instead of you getting something out of it, you'll receive negative out of it. So this is called yanqus. These things will lower the reward of your fasting. We need to abstain from qawl az-zur. وَلَا عَمَلَ بِهِ, doing zur, which is doing haram things, haram transactions, listening to music during the fast and those things, and wasting your time during the fast, playing games all day and wasting your time with games, those will decrease. Or watching movies during the fast, long time excessively, would decrease the reward of your fasting, and we need to try our best to abstain from those. The next point that I want to move to, inshallah, I have a lot of points, but I need to be very quick, is the intention of fast. First and foremost, Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. Every deed you must have an intention for. So the scholars had spoke about that the person have to have intention for every single day of Ramadan, or one intention will suffice. First, without intention will not work. The intention is not, some people they think that you have to say something to intend. As long as you know in your heart and in your mind that you'll be fasting, that itself is an intention. So do we have to have an intention for every single day, or one intention would suffice? Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يصوم إلا من أجمع. He says, إلا من أجمع الصيام قبل اليوم. He said, the person who does not have intention قبل الفجر, doesn't have intention, that person is not fasting. So if you're talking about mandatory, obligatory fasting like Ramadan, then you must have an intention. The scholars, they say, the most scholars, they say that one intention at the beginning of Ramadan would suffice all intentions of the 30 days. So the night that the moon was seen, you're excited, you know the moon was seen, and you know that you'll be fasting this entire month to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are good to go. By the way, why we fast? Why do we fast? To gain taqwa, Okay, that's the taqwa, the purpose, yes. Also, there's some hikmah to it. First and foremost, why do we fast? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to do so, we do it. Yeah, a Muslim, a true believer, is the one when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something, he's fully submissive to that. He completely, positively submits to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks him to do. That's wisdom number one. There's a lot of wisdoms that we do. One of the wisdoms of fast, that so that we can feel the people who are less fortunate, what they feel. There are a lot of people in the world die because they don't have anything to eat or drink. They are fasting not out of choice, they are fasting without choice. They don't have anything to eat. So we cannot sympathize with those people. I cannot say that I feel your pain unless I have been there once. That's why some people who are depressed, a lot of people will not understand them. Some people, they say, because your iman is weak, that's why you're depressed. Those all show that the ignorance of the person. They say, why don't you do dhikr so that you will get out of this depression? Because they do not understand what this person going through. But the person, once become a depressed, he will understand what that person is going through. Same thing, that once you know that how much he feels to be hungry, then you will understand what that person is going through. Other than that, it's health benefits that Dr. Zia yesterday mentioned. It helps you, your digestive system, it helps you lose weight, it helps you health-wisely. So there's a lot of benefits that we fast for. So we have to come back to, I just went out of the topic, is that first you have to have an intention, and one intention would suffice for the entire month. As for the Sunnah fast, Mondays, Thursdays, the Sunnah voluntarily fast, you don't have to have the fast from the night. The Prophet ﷺ, one time he came to Aisha, he said to Aisha, do you have a food? She said, no, I don't. Then he said, I will be fasting. And he started from the dhuhr. The condition only is there that you must not eat during the day. So if you are fasting a Sunnah fast, then you may, for example, you are at dhuhr time, you didn't eat or drink anything, you could say, well, I will go ahead and fast today. You could start from the dhuhr time, and you will receive the reward, the scholars they say, from the moment that you started your intention, from the dhuhr time. If you want to receive a full day reward, then the scholars they say you must have a full day of intentions. But for obligatory fast like Ramadan or nether, a vow that you make, then you must have the intention from the night or from the month of Ramadan. Intention is not necessary for you to say something. You don't have to say nawaitu kida or kida. You don't have to say it. As long as you know that you'll be fasting tomorrow, as long as you know that you'll be fasting this month to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are good to go. Another point that I want to mention is suhoor time. We need to make sure that during the suhoor, that when we eat, we must make sure that still we are in night. Still the adhan is not made. The second adhan is not made. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ibn Maktoum would make the first adhan, eat and drink. But Bilal makes the second adhan. When Bilal makes adhan, then stop eating and drinking. So when the second adhan of Fajr is made, then you must stop eating or drinking. The scholars, they say, how about if you had a drink and you started already? Many scholars of Islam had allowed the person to complete and finish the water that you already opened, because you're not starting right now, so you started before that moment. You could use applications, a trustworthy application that you have in your phone, as long as it's known this application is trustworthy, or you could use the schedule that the masjid usually offers. The next point that I want to speak about is the fasting of the places where the day is so long. In certain parts of the world, sometimes 20 hours they have a day. What are you going to do? Scholars have debated a lot about this mas'ala. Allah says first in the Quran, فَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, eat and drink at certain times. So from طلوع al-Fajr all the way to the sunset, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to abstain from food and drink. So the scholars, they say, because of that ayah, even if the days, if the hours of the day is long, you must complete those hours, because ayah clearly says that you must be fasting from طلوع al-Fajr all the way to the sunrise. If there is a mashaqqa, if there is difficulty on the person, the scholars, they say that the person, for example, is 20 hours and he can't do it, then you do whatever you can, and then you break your fast momentarily with something simple, and then you continue your fast. You'll be considered as a marid. Then those days that you missed, you must make it up when the day is shorter. When the day is shorter. Did I make sense here? Okay. Here, how long are we going to fast? 16 hours? Yeah. For example, this question, sometimes some people who work in a construction ask me, especially in the summer, what should I do? I feel thirsty, I can't continue. Then you do as much as you can. For example, up to 4 o'clock. Then the moment that you realize you're very weak, then you take some water and then continue your fast, and you will make up that day in a time that you can do without mashaqqa. Of course, that job, you must find another job. That rule would stay there temporarily until you find a better job. What about the traveler, the one who's traveling? You are traveling, first you are allowed to break your fast, the travels. But if you decide to fast, then you are upon a ta'ira, you can break your fast. If you chose to fast, then what rule are you going to follow? Are you going to follow the place that you left? Or are you going to follow your destination? You're only going to follow the ayah. You're going to follow the sun. Whenever the fajr starts, then you start your fast. Whenever the sunrise, you see it, then you will break your fast regardless of the hours, regardless of the hour, whether it's too short or it's too much. So that's what you're going to follow, the rule that you're going to follow. So you must fast from sunrise to sunset. What about departing? For example, you live in Nashville. You left right after Maghrib, you broke your fast and you went to another city where people are still fasting. Example of that city could be what? You travel a lot, Ahmed. Where? Seattle. So for example, you left Maghrib here, you went to Seattle, and it's still there, they have some hours of fasting. What are you going to do? If you broke your fast in a musawwaq shar'i, in a legal Islamic way, then you're fine. You don't have to continue fasting. Even the people that you went to are still fasting. This point should be clear. The next point is that, how about if you travel before the sunset, before Maghrib, and maybe there were 30 minutes before Maghrib, but you traveled and you went back, you went to somewhere that they had maybe 3 o'clock. Then it will give you longer hour to fast. Maybe you're fasting 15 hours and you reached a place where they still have 3 hours to the sunset. What you're going to do, then still you follow the rule. You follow the rule, you don't count the 30 minutes, rather you wait until the sun sets. However, you can avoid all these problems by simply following the Sunnah and breaking a fast and making up these days. And making up these days next time. Okay. The next point, inshallah, I'm reading from the book of Ibn Qudama, Kitab al-Sawm, the Sharh ibn Jibreen, rahimahullah. So in case if you want to go back to that book, inshallah. He says, وَيَجِبُ صَوْمُ Ramadan. Who has to fast? It's a mandatory upon every single Muslim. Baligh, who is adult. Aqil, who is sane. Qadirin ala as-sawm. These are the conditions for the person to fast. So the person must be an adult, sane and capable to fast. For the kids, they will be ordered to fast. The Prophet ﷺ, قِيَاسًا عَلَى الصَّلَاةِ, he said, مُرُوا أَبْنَاءَكُمُ الصَّلَاةِ بِسَبْعٍ. Order your children to pray when they're 7 and hold them accountable at the age of 10. So Sawm is like that. When they reach 7, start training your kids, maybe all day, half day, whatever they can. Then when they reach 10 years old, you should make sure that they fast, so that when they reach age of puberty, they will not have any problems of fasting. Okay. The next point is that how do we start fasting? We start fasting either Sha'ban had completed 30 days. بأمرين. Number one, either Sha'ban completed 30 days, then we will start fasting. Or برؤية الهلال, as Ibn Qudama says, that the crescent moon must be seen. Now I will get into a long debate about the ru'ya, hisab al-falaki and all of that, the calculation. So please help me God in this. Which one is correct and which one is not correct? Do we have to, you feel we put me in top. This guy avoided this topic and deliberately give it to me. Yeah. Guys, you guys follow calculation at ICM? Khalas. He pleads the 5th. He said, I got board members here. So he's smart. He's smart. First and foremost, let's speak about the ru'ya and the hisab. The ru'ya, let's start with ru'ya. To start the moon, ru'ya means seeing the moon or seeing the crescent moon. Can we follow the calculation or do we have to follow the ru'ya? First and foremost, ru'ya. I will defend that case, inshallah. Then I will mention the other group who said you can follow the calculations. Then I will let you decide, inshallah. First and foremost, al-hilal ma'nahu al-dhuhur. Hilal is something that comes out, something that has to be seen, something goes up. Based on the definition, we see that Hilal must be seen, must come out, according to the linguistically. Point number one. Point number two, the madahib al-arba'a. All four school of thought had agreed that the ru'ya is the correct method of starting. Ru'ya is the crescent moon has to be seen. The crescent moon has to be seen is the correct method of starting the month of Ramadan, of any Islamic calendar. Based on hadith of Prophet ﷺ, he said, صُومُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ وَافْطُرُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ. He said, fast when you see the moon and break your fast when you see the moon. So clearly the hadith says, ru'ya, to be followed. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, he gave us an option. When the moon is not, maybe it's there, but it's covered by the gham, by a cloud, what do we do? He said, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَاكْمِلُوا عِدَّةَ شَعْبَانَ 30. If the crescent moon is not able to be seen or is covered, maybe that means there is a possibility even the moon is there, but it's covered by cloud, says that, then fast Sha'ban 30 days. Fast Sha'ban 30 days. And there is a dua even to say when the crescent moon is seen. And the adillah and the scholars, until later, they anonymously agreed that the ru'ya is the correct method to follow. So the ru'ya, are we going to speak about ru'ya globally? Any Muslim sees the crescent moon in any part of the world, or we speak about local. That comes from the understanding of sumu. The hadith says sumu li ru'yati, fast when you see the moon. So fast when you see the moon, the majority of the scholars, they say that speaks to entire Muslims wherever they are. And the ummah al-mu'minuna is one. The Muslims are one whenever they are and wherever they are. So because of that, the hadith is general, and anybody, any part of the world that sees the moon, the rest of the Muslims should fast or break their fast based on the testimony of a Muslim who is any part of the world. And this is the opinion that I lean to. Some scholars, they say, no, just every group, they must look for the moon and try to see the moon. But Islam is a universal religion, and the ta'aleem, the teaching of Islam, speaks to all the Muslims, any part of the world. So any Muslim who sees any part of the world should do it, should fast. That's the ru'ya. The next thing is that al-hisab al-falaki. There are later scholars, mu'asirin, who came and they said that we can use the technology to indicate that the moon is there or not. So they say that ru'ya is because we follow, they say because we follow these calculations in the prayers, why can't we follow in the fast? First and foremost, easy to refute that, is that the ru'ya is not necessary for salat. You don't have to go or, no, I'm not going to take that. 2 minutes, he says. I'm not even 10% of my work done. Yeah, I'm going to take it from him, inshallah, since he plead the fifth. And what I was talking about? What specifically? What is it? Yes. So since we follow in the prayer, why can't we not follow in the fasting? We say that the ru'ya is not completely followed in the calculation. As long as we can estimately guess that the time had entered, then we should be okay. So that's not a good reason. Some people, they say al-hisab is qat'i, that the calculation is for sure, it's an evidence, it's clear. I don't know lately, but there are some occasions where the calculation had said it was impossible to be seen the moon, and there was over 10 countries of the Muslim world had seen it. So the scholars is debatable, and they debated on this mas'ala. The Prophet said, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُ الْهِلَالَ فَصُومُوا, you see the moon. So that ru'ya, that clear indication based on the madhahib, I think this is more stronger opinion. Even though there are some scholars who say that you can follow the calculation. And this is a mas'ala mu'asara, it will go forward and the people will keep debating. It's more convenience to follow the hisab. It's more convenience for the people to follow the calculation. But we say that personally, say, تَبِعُوا مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكُمْ رَبِّكُمْ. Allah says, follow whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed for you. And the hadith and the scholars of Islam in the past, until later, they agreed that the correct method was for the ru'ya. However, if somebody follows another method other than that, I could personally say that I'm not comfortable to follow this method, but it's not an issue that I would fight, or I would refute, or I will put name or label that person on anything, inshallah. So you might hear another argument opposite on my argument. Do you follow whatever you're comfortable, and at the end follow your local community, whatever they follow. Here we've been following the ru'ya, but I am afraid that position is getting weakened, and I'm afraid I will be overthrown by that. But I will have that position as an individual, inshallah. Okay. I have a lot of... Yes, MJ follows ru'ya. There's a MJ Fuqa America, they currently following the moon sighting, and that's what I'm comfortable with, inshallah. Okay, let me skip a lot of my notes so that, inshallah, I could give you some more, inshallah. Al-Mufṭirun, those who are exempt from fasting. He says, وَيُبَاحُ الْفِطْرُ فِي رَمَضَانَ لِأَرْبَعَةٍ. 4 people are exempted from breaking their fast, and are exempted from fasting. They are permissible to break their fast. Number 1, the ill person who will get harm from the fast. If the person is sick, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him a permission to break his fast. So if you are sick, if you're throwing up, if your head hurts, you can't do it, don't force yourself. Take the rukhsa of Allah, the permission that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given you, and break your fast. And also al-musafir, the traveler, was given a permission to break his fast, and as long as he's traveling. Does he have to break his fast since you're traveling? For example, lately it's easy and convenient to go to another state and come back. They say that if there is a mashaqqa, if there is difficulty in that fasting, you'll be tired and you'll be uncomfortable, then to break your fast is more beloved by Sharia, or more preferred by the Sharia. But if your travel is easy, come back, then otherwise is permissible. Otherwise is permissible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. If amongst you are some people who are sick or traveling, then they should break their fast and make it up those days another time. This hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Jabir ibn Abdullah, he says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw a man who was laying on the ground, and he was tired, and the people were surrounding him to see what was going on with him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, what's wrong with the man? Then this man said that, the companion said that he's fasting and he's tired. He could not continue, he could not keep it up. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَيْسَ مِنَ الْبِرِّ الصِّيَامِ فِي السَّفَرِ. It's not among the righteousness to fast while you are traveling. So if you are traveling and there is a mashaqqa in it, it's better for you to take permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's another hadith of Prophet said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves his permission to be taken. If Allah gives you a gift, Allah prefers for you to take that gift. Human being, when they give you something, they would like you to accept from that. So if Allah had given you that permission, take it. Is it permissible whether the person who's traveling will face difficulty or not? It's permissible for him at the end if he wants and chooses to take break from that. What about the people who constantly travel? They are truck drivers, the people who maybe cab, they always go outside of the state or outside of the city. Can they break their fast? Yes, they can break their fast. As long as the condition of traveler is applied upon them, then they can break their fast. They can break their fast. وَسَائِقِ السَّيَارَةِ, the people who also, anybody who's traveling outside constantly, he can. But if he chooses not to, especially I would advise if the person will not have any difficulty from his fast, to take advantage of that Ramadan and fast on those days. The people who are sick, the people who are diseased, that they must take medication during the day. The people who had to take insulin, like the people who have diabetes, the people who had kidney problems, or anybody who have to take medication during the days of Ramadan, or he will have health issues if he don't eat or drink, then that person is considered somebody who's sick and he can break his fast. The next number 2 that they are allowed to break their fast are menstruating, or they're exempted, actually, exempted from fasting are menstruating women and postpartum women. These two, they will break their fast and they have to make up those days based on the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. Aisha says that كُنَّا نُؤْمَرُ بِقَضَاءِ الصَّوْمِ وَلَا نُؤْمَرُ بِقَضَاءِ الصَّلَاةِ. The Prophet ﷺ used to command us to make up the days of fast, but he never commanded us to make up the salat. So for the sisters, when they have menstruations, they cannot fast. Even if they fast, their sawm would be invalid. The next point that can come under this is what about maybe the women who have miscarriage? Scholars, they say that if that fetus is less than 80 days, it means until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make him a surah, shape of a human being. So if that baby got miscarriage before, that fetus gets miscarriage before the 80 days, then that person, it will not be considered as postpartum, rather it will be considered as istihada, the blood that is continuous due to sickness, and that person, that sister would fast. That sister would fast even though blood is coming from her, because that blood is, the baby is less than 80 years, that's regular sickness. But if the fetus was more than 80 days, then that person would be considered as someone who have postpartum blood, and that person would break, or that sister would break her fast and make up on those days. Number 3 is al-hamil wal-murdi'ah, the pregnant woman and the breastfeeding one. These two is permissible for them. I think I'm taking your time for like nobody. Yeah, I have a lot. You gave me a lot. So the pregnant, let me summarize, inshallah. The pregnant woman and breastfeeding. The scholars debated about these two. Some they divide into two categories. They say that pregnant and breastfeeding one, if she fears for herself, she is sick, then she can break her fast. And she only has to do is to make qada on those days. If she fears for the baby, then she is not sick. Because she's not sick, first she has to make up those days. She can break her fast, she has to make up that day, and plus she feeds a poor person instead on that day. This is a qawl Ibn Abbas. Some scholars, they say hamil and murdi'ah, the pregnant woman and breastfeeding woman, both of them, whether she fears for herself or her baby, she's a sick person, and all what she have to do is qada. All we have to do is to make up. So sometimes you go to certain imam, he would tell you that because you were fearful for your baby, you make up and you pay extra with an it'am miskin. Some they will tell you only have to make up. And I think Allahu alam as-sahih, the correct in this mas'ala is that they only have to make up on those days based on a hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna Allah wada'a nisfa as-salati 'ala al-musafir was-sawm 'an al-musafir wa 'an al-murdi' wal-hubla. That hadith continues to say that the pregnant woman and the breastfeeding woman, all what they have to do is to make up those days, and only to make up those, and they don't have to feed any miskin instead. The last category, and I'll be ending inshallah in this, is al-ajiz, the one who's not capable to fast. Somebody who's sick, not capable to fast, and he's sick and he is not expected to recover from his illness. For example, he has maybe diabetes, and for the rest of his life he has to take those medication. Then that person, he is allowed to break his fast. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. Allah says, for those who are not capable to fast, only what they do is feed a miskin. You have to give 30 days every day, you feed a poor person. Nisfu sa', the scholars say nisfu sa' is 1.5 kilogram of rice would pay per day. Or you could collect all together and pay it one time for the 30 days, 1.5 kilogram of rice, or anything that the people who locally eat, So here you have to, if you want, you can bring masakin together and feed them. I don't know if you can find in here. It's difficult to find people who need something to eat. Yes, they'll be afraid maybe they're not going to take. Except the people who lost their fast due to jima', due to intercourse. Now I need to be careful here, kids are here. So if somebody who's married sleeps with his wife during the days of Ramadan, first and foremost, he have to make up that day. And there will be a capital, there will be a punishment that he have to go. The punishment is harsher here. Either he frees a slave. If you don't have a slave, this shows that how Islam fought against slavery and how Islam tried its best to stop slavery and eradicate slavery from the world. So a lot of sins, you do this, free a slave. You do this, free a slave. You do that, free a slave. Or at the end, Allah encourages the Muslims to free the slave so that you could get reward. So first you free a slave. If you can't, then you have to fast 2 months. That's why you have to be careful in a jima' intercourse during the days of Ramadan. If not, then this is the first option. Then if you can't, then you have to fast 2 months in a row. You go and do it 45 days and now you took a break, then you have to restart. That's what they say, the scholars. So it has to be in a row. Okay? فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, if the person cannot do, then he feeds 60 masakin. You feed 60 masakin. That's why during the days of Ramadan, you have to make sure that you are fasting from sexual intercourse during the days. Halal, we're talking about the halal. Haram is big problem. And at the end also, you'll go through this capital. So the person who breaks his fast through jima', this is what he has to go. Whether that jima' is with your spouse or not. So you have to pay this capital punishment. The scholars, they say, can you choose anyone? The scholars, they say, no, you have to. Many scholars, they say you have to go in a row. First and foremost is freeing a slave, then 2 months. Then if you can't do it, then you have to feed 60. Scholars, they say jahl is ignorant, gonna be excuse for this. The scholars have debated whether the person's ignorance will be an excuse. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. Whether the person's ignorance can be an excuse or not. But again, some they might say yes and some they might say no. Okay. The other point, the last point, inshallah, and I'm going to end, delaying making up the fasting. Some sisters, they lost days, lost Ramadan, and they did not do it until this Ramadan, so maybe 2 Ramadan. What are they supposed to do? According to the Ra'i of Sahaba, the scholars, the opinions of Sahaba, they say that if that delay was due to negligence of the person, then the person, until next Ramadan reaches, then the person fasts 1 day, plus he feeds a miskin, plus 1.5 kilogram of rice that you give it to the needy. So because of you procrastinating or delaying this, you have to go through that. If there was no ifrat, if the person did not do anything, or maybe after that she became pregnant again, or whatever reason, or she was sick after that, then she's excused. You will only have to make up those days. This is the Ra'i of Sahaba. This is the opinion of the Sahaba, and this is the most safe one for the sisters. If there was no any negligence from the sister, then there should not be no problems, inshallah. I had a lot of things to go through, inshallah. Maybe we will answer through questions and answer. We have question and answer. Do we have the QA, the note cards, so the sisters or the brothers could write down their questions? Yeah, let everybody receive, inshallah. Maybe you can give. So we will pass out cards, inshallah. Write down your questions, and we have a session, the last session, we would answer all your questions, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Yes, we'll find from the office. Okay. So, did I take too long of your time?
There are a couple things that I'll add to it. Just start right away?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليم. Before I begin talking about my topic, which are the things that nullify one's fast, I want everyone to know a disclaimer about studying Islamic jurisprudence. So, fiqh, as many of you may know or may not know, there are 4 categories of fiqh, or 4 schools of thought that are the most famous. You have Hanafi fiqh, you have Maliki fiqh, you have Shafi'i fiqh, and you have Hanbali fiqh. All of these different schools of thought, or different categories of fiqh are taught in different parts of the world, depending on where people are from. For example, many Indo-Pacs, they follow the Hanafi madhab. Many people who are from or studied in the Gulf area, they follow the Hanbali madhab. You have people in Africa who follow the Maliki madhab, and in northern Africa, the Shafi'i madhab, and some of them are Maliki as well. In America, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but because everything is a melting pot here, you just have everybody here. So I might be Hanbali today, and then tomorrow I'm Maliki, because most people do not have a specific structure or follow of school of thought that they have been taught or practiced in the United States of America. So when it comes to getting different rulings from different imams, you will typically be getting the ruling from the specific imam of what he studied. Or if he's someone who studied Islamic jurisprudence on a higher level, he will be someone who will give you the verdict according to where you are from or whom you may follow. So if you hear something within the talk that may be different from that which you have studied or that which you have heard, do not automatically let it be something that will alarm you to something being incorrect, but perhaps it may just be something that is different, a different opinion of that which you follow, and you can research it, or if you have a question about it, feel free to ask about it, inshallah ta'ala. So to begin my topic, the nullifiers of Islam, inshallah, will be very simple. It doesn't take a lot, and we should be able to get through it rather quickly. The first type of nullifier is the nullifier in which once you do it, it breaks your fast and you have a kafara, or you have an expiation for it that you have to make up. Imam Ahmed already basically talked about it. There's only one of those. And this one that if you break your fast, you have to make an expiation for it, is if you're fasting during the month of Ramadan and you are intimate with your spouse. I will be careful of the words that I use because of the children that are in the room, but if you are intimate with your spouse, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where a man came to him and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I was with my wife. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, do you have, or the man asked the Prophet ﷺ, he said, so what should I do? And the Prophet ﷺ said to him that you need to free a slave. And the man said, O Messenger of Allah, I don't have a slave to free. And so after that, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, well, if you don't have that, then you need to feed 60 poor people, or fast, 2 months consecutively, 60 days. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm not able to do that. And so then the Prophet ﷺ said to him, okay, well, if you cannot do those two, then you need to feed 60 poor people, i.e. a day for every day that you could not fast of the 2 consecutive months. And so he looked at the Prophet ﷺ and he said, O Rasulullah, there is not a person in this town that is poorer than me. And so the Prophet ﷺ laughed, so much so that you could see his molar teeth. And he left and he came back and he had a portion of dates with him. He said, okay, well then at least take this and give it to your family. And so in that we see that if someone does fall into this category, there is no exception to this rule, that you have to go in the order as Sheikh Imam Ahmed said, you have to go in that order. If you don't have a slave to free, which we don't have, we're in America, we don't have slaves, so that one's X'd off the list. Next is fasting consecutively for 2 months. Being able to do that does not mean I have to go to work and I feel like I can't do it. There has to be a medical reason of why you cannot do it, or there has to be some legitimate reason that maybe a doctor has prescribed for you that you cannot perform that particular duty, but just out of being lazy, then that is not an excuse for not doing or fasting those 2 consecutive months. What is considered intimacy, and what causes a person to have to, or what is the factor that makes this kafara valid, or you have to perform this kafara, this expiation. You do not have to enter. All you have to do is touch. You do not have to enter. All you have to do is touch. If your areas touch each other, then that kafara is now obligated for you to do. No entry is required. So if you're close and you touch, then that kafara is automatically upon you at that period. And inshallah, everybody can read between the lines. The next thing that I want to talk about is al-qada. So you have the second type of kafara is where you have to make up those days. But there is no expiation for that time. And that is for a menstruating woman. It is also for a woman of postpartum bleeding. It is also for the traveler and also for the sick person. Imam Ahmed covered all of those, but there's one thing that I want to add that I think is very important, and that is what is considered traveling in the United States of America. Mark my words, in the United States of America. I'm not talking about India. I'm not talking about Arabia. I'm not talking about Morocco. I'm talking about the United States of America. According to some ulama, if you go online, which is one bad thing about going online and looking for fatwa, because sometimes when you look for them, they can lead you in the wrong way, even though they may be correct for that particular person's area that they're in. You will find, if you go on Islam QA or any other website, islamweb.com, where it will say that the period or the distance for traveling, or the distance that is considered for travel, is 86 miles. In the United States, in most areas, 86 miles is not far at all, and we don't usually consider that traveling. If that were the case, I would shorten my prayers to come to Nashville, because to get from here back to Murfreesboro is about 80, maybe about 80 miles, give or take. And that's not considered travel. So therefore, there are different things that you have to take into consideration as to what is travel. And without getting into a lot of detail, if someone wants to talk to me about it in more detail later, we can go over it. But to keep it very simple and brief, if you fill your car up, an average car can go about 400 miles on one tank, 350 to 400 miles. If you can fill your car up, go there and come back, then that is not considered travel. If you cannot go there and come back on one tank of gas, that's most likely considered travel. And that's most likely what somebody would consider travel. Because some ulama have said that traveling is according to whatever the norm is in your country, not necessarily 86 miles or the travel of a woman going from the travel that a woman can go in one day or one night, but it's according to what is considered traveling in your country, right? So an example of that would be if you're going to Knoxville. Knoxville is considered traveling. Going from Murfreesboro to Clarksville is not travel. Going from Nashville to Hendersonville is not travel. Or even going from here to Chattanooga is not considered travel, because all of those places you can go there and you can come back. So you do not have the concession to break your fast at that point for that time, nor can you cannot break your fast, and nor can you shorten your prayers during that period of time of travel from those different areas like that. So typically about 300 miles or so, give or take, that is what is considered the mark for travel. 300 miles, I'm saying round trip, so about 150 to 160 one way. Plane travel is a lot different. It's calculated a lot different. I don't have time to go over that now, but just briefly, just to be brief with it, if you are someone who's going from here to Nashville and you're going to Atlanta and you're coming back, for example, I would suggest that you not break your fast, because there is no mashaqqa really in that. Because the idea is that there has to be some sort of hardship. Now, if you're going from here and you're coming back the same day, now if you're going from here and you're going to Seattle, Brother Ahmed Rajab, you're going to Seattle already, and you're going to be out there for some time. To get there takes 5-6 hours or so, and to get back 5 or 6 hours. You're there, you're away from home, you have to get food, you have to get somewhere to stay. These things, even though we may feel as though they're not actually a hardship, but they really are, they actually make your travel a lot more difficult than if you're just going and coming back and going home. So if you have to stay there for a longer period and you're traveling for a longer distance, such as going from here to Seattle, that will be considered travel, and therefore you would be able to shorten your prayer. And also you would be able to break your fast. You would have to make that fast up, and there is no exception to that rule. The next thing that I want to go over is the fast of someone who breaks their fast without a reason. They just break their fast because they feel like it. Number one, this person is athim, he's sinful. Number two, if a person does do that, there is no kafara for him, there is no expiation for him to do. However, he does have to make that day up. And he should make tawbah or repentance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the action that he did. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. And eat and drink until it's been made clear to you the distinction between the fajr, time, okay, or the white that you'll find on the horizon at the time of fajr, alrighty? And fast from that period when the sun has started to rise until the night time or until sunset or maghrib time. If anyone breaks their fast within that period of time, from sun up to sundown, in other words, then you will have to make up that day. And if you've done it without a due valid reason, then this is considered a sin, and you should make tawbah from it. Also, the next thing that I want to talk about is, in fasting, some people may feel that it's just about eating and drinking, or, as I said before, intimacy with your spouse. But also anything that enters inside of the body that is of some sort of nutrients or gives the body a sort of sustenance that is not normally found within the body. So that would include nicotine. So for all of our smokers, you cannot smoke during the month of Ramadan during the day. Although it may not be food, it is putting something inside of the body that is not normally there. And so therefore, because you are adding something to your system, you are now falling into that category of breaking your fast. And anything else that may fall in that category, such as if you are someone who's taking something intravenously through your arm or any other vein in your body, you're on an IV or anything of that sort that is hydrating you or that is replenishing some sort of nutrients into your body, if you're in that case or that state, then you have to make up that day. Even if you are not eating by way of your mouth or drinking by way of your mouth, you still have to make up that day. The next thing that I want to talk about is during our fast, the wudu that we make. Now, breaking your fast is not just, as I said, it could be intravenously something that you're taking, or it could be something that you're taking orally, but anything that enters through any orifice through in your body or on your body. So that includes your nose, that includes your ears, and that also includes your two entry points on your private parts. If anything enters into your body through any of those orifices, that is something that could give you some sort of nutrients or replenish something in your body that would not normally be there or that may be deficient, then that is considered a break of your fast, and therefore you would have to make up that day. An example that I could give very quickly is, for example, wudu. This is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Baligh fil istinshaq illa an takuna sa'iman." That when we make wudu, we usually take the water and we snuff it up our nose. But during the month of Ramadan or while you're fasting, it's better to do it lightly so that the water doesn't go up your nose and go down your windpipe, or not down your windpipe. I hope it doesn't go down your windpipe, but down your throat. So therefore, if you are fasting and you have to make wudu, just sniff the water lightly. Don't sniff it all the way up. Just sniff it lightly and then blow it out, and then you're done. Alrighty? And any other things that you may put on in your nose, or like eye drops, or no, you're not going to put eye drops in your nose, but if you're using eye drops or using any sort of other liquids that you may be putting in your nose, or anything that can enter into your throat by way of any orifice, then you need to be aware of it and use it with caution. If you accidentally, for example, sniff too much water up your nose, do you have to make up that day? I'm sure that'll be a question. No, you do not, if it is unintentional. However, if you know that you're a person that when you make wudu and you sniff very hard and it usually goes to your throat, and you do that, then that would be considered intentionally done, and so therefore you would have to make that day up. But in other words, if you don't, then you would not have to make it up. The next topic or the next thing that I want to go over is vomiting. Vomiting or throwing up is also something that breaks your fast if it is done intentionally. There are differences of opinion amongst the ulama about this case. Some of them say vomiting, whether done amdan or intentionally, or done nasiyan or out of your control, then it doesn't break your fast. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, the most apparent opinion that could be the closest to that which is right, and Allah knows best, is if you do it intentionally, for whatever reason you need to make yourself throw up, then you would need to make that day up. The reason for that is because, or some of the ulama, they say that you don't have to make this day up, is because the Prophet ﷺ said, "As-sawmu mimma dakhal," that fasting is, or refraining from something is from that which enters the body. So you cannot put anything inside of your body. So the argument is, if something comes up out of your body, does that count as something that as something that you've eaten? Because sometimes when you vomit, you do swallow some of it back down, you know? So if you're someone who did it and it just happened, you're sick and it happened and you threw up, then you don't have to make that day up. But if you're someone who did it intentionally, then because you're going to most likely swallow something back down, you will have to make that day up. I know that it doesn't really sound like it's very nutritious, but it is still food that has come up and then it goes back down, and therefore you will have to make that day up. The next thing that I want to talk about is the next topic that I want to talk about is masturbation and how it affects your fast. Anyone who touches their body in this sort of manner during the month of Ramadan, and it causes them to be aroused to such an extent that they will eventually, as you get my point, that you eventually release. If this is something that you have done, then you have to make up that day. Because this falls under the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he's reporting on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who stated or said that my servant leaves off fasting, or my servant is fasting, he leaves off food and drink, and he also leaves off his desires for my sake. So anything that would entice your desires to that level or magnitude, and you fall into the category where you have released, then you need to make up that day. So it's not just intimacy with your spouse, but also if you are touching yourself in a manner that could cause that. Also, it also goes for visualizing or looking repetitiously over things that will bring you to that place. If you've reached a place where you will climax because of looking at something, intentionally looking at it, then you will have to make that day up as well. If it's something that you have done, for example, you were just going throughout your day and you happen to be thinking about something and it happens unintentionally, then you do not have to make up that day, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not hold people accountable for that which they do mistakenly. But if it's something that you've done intentionally, then you will have to make up that day. The next thing that I want to talk about is there is a difference between pre-seminal discharge and semen itself. If you are someone who has had pre-seminal discharge come out of you, then that does not break your fast. That which breaks your fast is actual semen, is what breaks your fast. And you will have to make that day up. So if you are looking at these things that may entice you or arouse, bring you to this level of arousal, then you will have to make it up again. if you actually climax. But if you are just someone who just had pre-seminal discharge come out of you, then you don't have to make up that day. The next thing that I want to talk about is hijama, or cupping. It's also a big topic amongst ulama, whether or not it is something that breaks your fast or not. Because there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, أَفْطَرُ الْحَاجِمْ وَالْمَحْجُومِ, that the person who is the cupper and the one who is being cupped, and cupping bloodletting, obviously, then they both are in a state where they are not fasting. So the question is, well, what was the reasoning behind the Prophet ﷺ saying this? Because you have people like Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala an, where he was asked the same question, and he asked one of the Anas ibn Malik radiallahu an, he asked him, he said, أَكُنْتُمْ تَكْرَهُونَ الْحِجَامَ لِلصَّائِمِ عِنْدَ عَهْدِ النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا إلا من أجل الضعف. So Ibn Abbas, Anas ibn Malik, he asked Ibn Abbas and he said, did you all used to dislike cupping during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while you were fasting? And Ibn Abbas replied and he said, no, except if someone feared that they would become weak by way of it. So if you are cupping, or you're someone, when you get cupped, you start to feel like you're going to faint, or sometimes people may need a little bit of sugar or something like that to get their body up and running again from bloodletting, then in this case, it would be better for you to leave it off, due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ stating that one should not cup or should not do hijama during this time. However, if that does not apply to you and you don't have that problem, then do as you please and cup if that's what you would like to do. However, it is not recommended to do it. And even if you are someone who can do it, just to stay away from it, from your idea of cautiousness, then it's better to leave it off as well. Oh, okay. And last thing but not least, any of these things, if they're done, if they're done out of forgetfulness or by mistake, then you do not have to make that fast up. There are other things that I would like to go over, but I don't have time, so I'll end there. It's your fault though, man. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
I have a lot of questions. Oh, here. Okay. So inshallah we'll take a break for Salat. We have Dr. Fayyaz with us who will give us nutrition. Ramadan, it's time for you to hear some medical help, inshallah. Medical advices. These doctors, to see them, it will cost you money. So they're here, inshallah, for free. So come back after Maghrib. Then we have the final session of Q&As. If you have questions, please write it down. And we will do it right after Maghrib, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khair. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallahu khair. We'll do the session right after.